Good afternoon, Niranjana and gentlemen. Welcome to Forbes India CFO Dialogues in partnership with the Institute of Management Accountants, IMA. At the outset, from all of us at Forbes India, let me begin by wishing our rather distinguished panel a wonderful new year, more so after a troubled 2020. To our audience who've joined us today, we hope you have a great year ahead after all the uncertainties that 2020 threw at us. We joined this afternoon by Mr. Navneet Khandelwal, the CFO of Zensa Technologies, Ms. Niranjana C., the Vice President, Power Transmission and Distribution at L&T Construction, Mr. Raj Malik, the Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Accounts Officer at Reliance Industries Limited, Mr. Balaji Rangaswamy, the Head F&A and CFO, KPMG Bahrain. Thank you, Niranjana and gentlemen, for joining us at the Forbes India CFO Dialogues in partnership with the Institute of Management Accountants, IMA. We've just begun a new year, and as with every new year, this year certainly offers hope after what has been a troubled year. Businesses were hit hard, jobs were at stake, and for many of us, life has been turned somewhat upside down. On the bright side, vaccines are being developed, and there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel as economies begin to recover from a slump. But the past year had been entirely different, and more so for so many CFOs like yourselves. Business activity was halted overnight, disrupting supply chains and sales, which created an instant liquidity crisis for businesses big and small. While digital transformation and businesses going online remained top priority, cash flow remained crucial to ensure business continuity. This has made the CFO one of the most important C-suite executives amidst the crisis. Now, as we look at the new year, the first priority for many CFOs will be to optimize cash reserves, as the extent and duration of the crisis still remains unclear. There is also a need to set up a cash war room, a cross-functional task force that would be key to reviewing company-wide situation in order to remain on top of the game. While customers and vendors will likely delay payments, it may become important to recover pending payments and double down on collections to remain solvent during the long run. Apart from monitoring the current cash situation, CFOs will also be tasked with scenario planning to gauge different ways that the COVID-19 pandemic can pan out and preparing the necessary solutions for each scenario that the company can implement. A strong communication plan will also be key. Once concerns about cash reserves and scenario planning and communications are addressed, CFOs can focus on ensuring business continuity during the new norm. So on that note, let me begin by asking our panelists for their opening comments on how they saw the past year and what has been the experience, in tiding over the crisis. So let me begin by asking Ms. Niranjana, and then I'll move around.
Yes. This past year has been challenging, nevertheless, and none of us, not only here, across the globe, none of us were really prepared for this kind of a black swan event. And it has really changed the way we do business. Everything has gone upside down. But then the one thing was that, we all of us were swift and quick enough to recover from this, First we took our top at the time when this pandemic set in. Our immediate priorities are just two. First and foremost was the safety of our staff and workmen. Since I come from the construction division of Larsen & Toubro, and we have huge workmen strength. So the priority was taking care of all the workmen and ensuring that, to avoid their migration, keeping them safe, providing them enough food and taking care of their accommodation, ensuring that they don't fall into this pandemic, because once it enters their camp, it just spreads everywhere, So that was a priority, taking care of the safety of the people. And the second priority became cash. In fact, equally, since we knew that funds would not come in. So we really had to take care of our fixed expenses and our costs. And as you rightly pointed out, have a cash reserve, the cash chest and all that. These two were the topmost priority. And how we enable people to work from home, These were the priorities when we started this.
Understood. Let me bring in Mr. Raj Malik. So your thoughts on how the past years played out for you and sort of learnings from that.
Actually, in business we speak of disruptions, and the past year was a perfect example of disruption. And out of nothing, in the mid March, all our offices closed. We had around 1,400 petrol pumps all over India. Sales literally stopped, become zero. All the retail outlets were closed literally. There were no sales. So it was a very difficult year, and suddenly we were put in a pitch which is very difficult to bat on. But like the Indian team did yesterday, we had the grit and resilience, and we could manage to, if not win, at least to end the match with a draw. What was important, we realized is, the safety of the employees. So immediately we stopped operation in our offices. We asked people to move home, and two very important transactions are going on. And when the world was looking with us, and most people were not aware, we actually collected around invested around 2 lakh crores in Reliance, in either in the shares, or the investors have brought in money in the Jio and retail front. So doing all these things suddenly from home without not going to office, it was a big challenge. But we could manage it as number one. And number two, again, uh, the cash, managing the cash and the operations. So we wanted to ensure that, whatever happens, we will let the business be as it is. We will not allow the business to suffer. And I'm happy to let you know that we could manage it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Navneet, how is, the past year for you? A lot of movement towards, technology companies and, so on and so forth. What has been your experience?
Yeah, actually, as my co-panelists have referred to, yes, this was something which we were not prepared for, but as it really struck globally, that's where it impacted the entire scale of operations for us globally. What we did is we formed a nerve center addressing this from a COVID perspective, which was headed by the CFO in the company. And what this nerve center focused on was, firstly, is on the people health and safety. Secondly, in terms of business continuity and delivery to customers. Third aspect that we covered was cash conservation, which everybody called out. Fourth is on profitability management. Fifth is on communication channels with employees, customers, and our investors. And all of this was being done through continuous scenario planning. So, taking all this perspective into mind, we worked around ensuring there is no business disruption. All our employees' well-being is being actually tracked, and in fact, to that effect, we also launched various apps basis which we were tracking the health of each and every employee, and they had to give a daily declaration on the app saying that whether they are okay or they need help. In fact, we formed a very good helpline for our employees globally, to ensure that if somebody needs any help, we could actually reach out and help them and assist them. And this was being tracked at a very at the highest level and very minutely. So that's how we did. And actually this was all about resilience and how do you actually shape up in the time of crisis. And that's what so it was a challenging year, a tough year, but I think I'm glad the way we have actually reacted to it, or the way we coped up with it, has been quite excellent, as we emerged pretty well in terms of ensuring that there is no disruption to the business, the well-being of employees is being taken care of, as well as we were able to actually do a fantastic job on the cash conservation and collections perspective. At the
Absolutely.
same time, as a company, were also focused on the social aspect, and that's where we took up the an initiative of ensuring that we were supplying food on a daily basis to roughly about 10,000 migrant laborers across the across India. That was something that we were also doing as a part of our social initiatives. So that's in summary how it's been.
Absolutely. I think we'll want to sort of know more about the learnings from the crisis and how that sort of prepped you for the future. But let me bring in Mr. Balaji here from a global perspective, and while sitting in Bahrain as well. What has been the sort of experience that you've had with the whole crisis from March last year?
Yes, Manu. See, basically, I have a different perspective altogether. See, what happened, like during this COVID process, I have even switched one employee to another employee. I moved from EY to KPMG, and the entire transition process was very smooth and sweet. The one challenge, like any other accountants, we continue to have always is that the cash flow position, or how we handle the situation. Like instead of having a long forecasting, long cycle period, we have a short cycle period, and the interaction with the banks and external stakeholders. It is not a bigger challenge, but the entire communication is happening through the digital way. So we are tuned to that already, so that way we are able to manage the situation very well. The other point, what I would like to, we used to go for a boardroom meeting, but nowadays, the entire board meeting is happening through, Teams, and the Teams is the one software that helps to communicate each other more cohesively and resolve all the conflicts. So that way, I feel that the entire transition is smooth and soft.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay, great. Let me bring in Niranjan ma'am here. Take us through some of your sort of key learnings from the past year. Like Mr. Balaji mentioned, moving to short forecasting, you realize that you don't need to be physically present in offices, things like that. But for you, was it any different? I mean, what have been some of the key learnings there?
Yeah, in fact, there were quite a lot of learnings, in the last 1 year, because we being in the construction field where the actual work, it has to happen physically at the project sites only. While office-based people, we could, work from home and operate remotely, but still the actual work has to take place at the project site. But then the main learning for us in this period was that work from home as an option was something which in our organization we didn't, think of it much. So here was an opportunity for us. Something which we could never imagine. We completed the entire audit remotely from home, without the actual, physical documents, being exchanged, both from the auditors and the auditees' point of view. Everything happened remotely, and many of the new things which happened were that, there were huge supply chain disruptions, and while the materials, many of the imports, we operate. In the vertical in which I am, we cover both Indian and the international geographies, covering Middle East, ASEAN, and African regions. And many of the project imports which come from Europe or from China to the other parts of the world and to India, with these huge supply chain disruptions, once it recovered, whereas travel could not happen. So we just requested the clients, to do their virtual inspection or remote inspection. So these are something which was never thought of. Ultimately the clients also agreed. That way we could save quite a lot of time and cost, and some of the new things which we thought of, like this remote inspection with the clients, and even with our clients, we also requested them to do remote inspection of our work. Whatever work we were doing, they had remotely inspected that and they had certified, because the government had also requested the clients, mainly we deal with discoms and power grid and other such entities, and the government had asked them to keep the infrastructure companies moving and release some funds, so they had to certify the bills. So we had requested them to virtually certify the invoices. Many such changes had happened, and one main thing was all the meetings were happening virtually, including our board meetings. So this again, all the vendor negotiations. Earlier I would not have met the vendors. Now quite a lot of time was available with us, so we could almost meet most of the major vendors remotely on Teams. We could discuss with them, which was not happening. Always people used to cite, lack of time and all that. And another important one, I could reach out to all my employees through Teams. Since this was again, I felt that because communication was the key in this, in the whole last year, it's been communication and reaching out to people, which really, Teams had facilitated all that. I think I would have covered more employees during this period than I would have in the last, 10 or 15 years of my career. That way we could also, reach out to people, and many, especially on the scenario planning, what I wanted to say was that we did work out various scenarios, with a 1 month lockdown, with a 2 month lockdown, with a 3 month lockdown, and assuming various recovery periods. See, these ultimately what had happened didn't fit in any of these scenarios what we had envisaged, because even though the economy had opened up, the recovery was taking a longer time. So these were kind of lessons. How much ever we talk about being well prepared and all that, ultimately the events kind of overtake you. But then I believe that a resilient and a strong organization with good processes, always they recover fast, so our work was kind of almost back to normal. And one important thing at the corporate level, what we did was that we did plan, and we also decided to raise money, and whether we utilize it or not, we got the necessary approvals, for raising further money in the event of, our clients not paying or anything like that. Whereas we can't, we believe that we shouldn't keep our vendors, overdue for long, So we did raise some working capital and kept everything ready to face the pandemic. So that way, I would say that very nimbly we got back onto our feet, and we kept things moving. In fact, when within a month of the pandemic, when it was released, when the lockdown was released in India and work resumed at project site, right from the managing director of the company to all the senior team, we decided that to show solidarity, we will also go to office and work or not work from home. When we are exposing our project teams to go and physically work, we can't be sitting in office. So we decided to walk the talk, and all of us have been attending office since May.
Wow, that's very fascinating. And before I bring in Raj here, were there moments when a lot of payments due to you were not being paid? Was that situation there, ma'am, Ranjana? I'm sorry,
Yes,
you're on mute. Yeah.
You had asked me.
Yes. I was just asking, just taking forward what you had mentioned, in terms of payment.
Sorry. Yeah, you're asking Raj, right?
No, I was asking you.
Oh, fine. Yeah, we did have payment delays. In fact, till up to June was a bit okay, but there were payment delays because ours is basically government clients, and the priorities of the government had shifted. So we had to look at other ways, like, maybe say like the factoring of receivables with the banks, and the funds available was a bit staggered. There were delays, but then nevertheless, the funds are coming up with the government giving more push. But then this year, we know for a fact that, there would be payment delays across.
Okay. Raj, take us through, the key learnings from the pandemic, and what can you sort of incorporate as we go forward into the new year and even in the future? Ranjana sort of spoke about, having resilient companies, but what are your thoughts on the learnings forward?
Yeah, indeed. This pandemic has taught us a lot of new things. I could think of 5 key learnings that we have learned in this pandemic. I'll give you a short incident. It was around 15th or 20th of March. I was speaking to our CFO, and when things in China were not bad, Europe is also crumbling, and India, we thought something has to happen, something will happen. So he told me, but you have to come to office, right? Your team, and you cannot go work and home. I said, yeah, of course, yes, because in India, in RIL, we have around 500 entities and more than 100 auditors we have. So, and we publish our results within 30 days of the year end. That to audited. So we have to come to office. But in 4 days, things changed, and from 24th of March, I think we closed down and we all shifted home. So we did not want to take any risk. The people in the sites were working, but there were separate arrangements for them. So it appeared to be impossible, but fact remains that we have done it, and we have done it exceedingly well. We have closed March, and we have published our results on 30th of April in 30 days, and then we have in first quarter Q1, Q2, and Q3 this December also we are lying to do in the right time. So first and foremost, that nothing is impossible. What appears to be impossible is not impossible, and impossible, I am impossible, right? Second is disruption can strike at any point of time. This is a big learning that you have to prepare for disruption, maybe from the customer side, from the sales side, from business side. So you have to aware of disruption. Third is the IT is the backbone. We could manage only because we have a great IT infrastructure and a great IT team. We could shift to home. We can start working from home. We have people connected. We have softwares. So IT is a very important backbone. Without IT, it is very difficult to run business at this point of time in India and the world. Fourth is employees are your true strength. Without employees, you cannot do anything. If the employees are not resilient, if they're not motivated, you cannot do anything. In RIL, what we have done is we have done a portal, and every employee has to log in every day morning and in the portal and state whether he and all the family members, the names of family members, all have been kept in the portal, whether they are safe or they have any symptoms of COVID or not. if anyone pointed out there are any symptoms of COVID, the company made an arrangement that the doctors and the medical practitioners will go to their home, collect the sample, and do the testing, and they give the report next day. And if they are tested positive, they were taken care. They were put to hospital. They were put in on office. We had built a 300 bed, 200 bed hospital. They were put in the hospital, or we have made arrangements to all hospitals all over Bombay and other parts of India. So all the employees were taken, not the employees, our permanent employees, temporary employees, and their family members were taken care by the people. So we realize the employees are our true strength, and until they are with you, you will not be able to manage anything. So these are the 5 key learning that I think we have learned in this pandemic.
Fascinating, great work on that, Navneet. Raj also sort of spoke about how disruptions can strike at any time, and amidst all of this, technology has actually played a pivotal role, in dealing with the entire pandemic. How have you sort of used it to your advantage, and also, from a larger company point of view? Do you think more Indian companies were receptive towards adopting technology, once the crisis hit?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what this pandemic did is it just accelerated the adoption of technology. What people had planned for or had thought that they would be doing by 2025, they had to actually accelerate and go for it immediately. And just to give an example, such has been the case of disruption that even in the US, say e-commerce business shot up from about 18 percentage mix to about 35 percentage of the total retail business within a span of about 3 to 4 months once the pandemic hit. Which that kind of a growth for that business would typically take about 10 years to get to that level. So this was the kind of disruption, which meant that everybody had an acceleration towards going towards technology, and it became a question of survival. And whoever is actually able to adapt to it is the one who would stand out as somebody who would survive over a long term. And so people had to think out of the box, look at adopting, moving towards cloud, also accelerate the kind of security network that they need to put on, because working with technology comes with also how do you ensure a security around it. So definitely everybody, like for example, even if I were to give a small perspective of when we are trying to close our books and getting an audit done, there are and I'm sure my colleagues would talk about, the auditors had to adjust to how will they do a stock verification. Earlier it used to be a physical stock verification, but there have been ways and means auditors have actually come to really still what I would certify the authenticity of the stocks by not going there physically, by other ways and means. So that is something which has happened, and that has only been done through technology. So everybody had to rethink and revisit and look at how do you actually adapt technology so that you can work with social distancing, you are able to operate without coming to office, and that has been how it has it has really worked out.
Understood. Mr. Balaji, amidst all of this, these uncertain times, people have also had to take some tough calls. How do companies sort of strike a balance between empathetic and cost-effective leadership in a crisis situation like this?
Yeah, basically, what's happening is in a crisis situation, cash plays a crucial role, and the employee safety is of utmost importance. So there are several restrictions placed by the government that only certain number of people can come to the office. However, certain employees must come to the office in order to perform their duties. So one advantage is the technology or the disaster recovery system work very well. So what we try to do help is each employees can have their IT system strengthened at their homes, so that they can connectivity is more crucial at this point of time. So, the other point what I want to emphasize is the cyber security when they work from home or anywhere. What we advise them is be in a separate room, so that any information that is not going to even spread across anywhere else. So that is something which we need to take care of it. So it's not home; it's a home office that we are looking for each employees to work. according to our measures. And the other point, what I want to mention here is initially we were talking about paperless office, etc. Now what we are talking is work from home, and we are also next step. What we are talking remote working. Like the certain people can work from anywhere in the world. So still they will be part of the payroll, part of our this one, but they can work from anywhere. They can join remotely and go remotely. So that's what we are thinking of as a next step. This is something called agile working, what we are aiming, so that we actually formed a task group comprising of all the CSS head, like for a person from IT head, finance head, the marketing head, everybody. So we talk to each other on a daily basis and understand what are the next step, what are the changes that's happening in the market on this crisis situation, what are the things we proactively look into it, so that we can inform our employees accordingly, so that they work in a cohesive manner to ensure that all the tasks are performed in a timely manner.
Raj, I just want to throw the same question to you also. Basically about striking a balance between cost-effective leadership and being empathetic towards your employees. How do you really strike a balance there?
I mean, see, there would be a very fine balance. No disagree on this thought. But at the same time, if you say priority, I think your relationship towards your employees, the empathy that you show to them, goes a long way. I mean, we obviously, Reliance as an organization always put that first. I can tell you that in our organization, employees, we have an employee first policy. I think very few organizations would have done like this. That you just in the portal, if you are not putting that whether you're safe or not, you will receive mails from HR and they'll force you to write if you're safe. If you're not safe, and if you just give a phone call or you digitally intimate the company, people will come at your home, do all the tests, take the report, and then take you to hospital and ensure that you are safe. I mean, very few organizations in India must have done like this. So obviously, our organization very clearly, the empathy was employees are safe. Cost effective. Reliance is known for being cost effective. I mean, Reliance is known for being a product in the market value. So we have that. So we have controlled cost very seriously. I mean, you will not believe that even all the expenses used to get validated 3 or 4 times before they are paid. I mean, all payments were stopped until it goes to various levels. No payment was made. We are that serious. As far as creditors are concerned, we have innovative method. We have developed innovative methods. Either we got long credit periods, we got to the banks and got working capitals, etc. And extended funding of the credit period, etc., etc. So we have done both ways. We have done all the ways. We have actually gone through all the routes that are possible to ensure that we take care of the employees, and at the same time the company does not suffer and the business goes on.
We've just begun getting some questions from the audience. We will take them at the end of the session, as we go forward. If you have specific questions for the audience, for the panelists, please mention who you would want to sort of direct that to. And Niranjana, ma'am, when you mentioned about sort of various scenario planning through the last year. We are in a new year now, so how are CFOs like yourselves sort of reimagining, forecasting, and planning for an unpredictable year? I mean, we're still not out of the mess.
Yeah, I will start from the previous one, which you asked the other panelist. Managing our costs. We gave utmost importance to cost leadership. So we had formed separate task forces or committees to monitor which are the various heads of cost. Each cost head was given. It was across the company, across all the verticals put together. Because every expenditure element counts, so we had a team specifically monitoring bank guarantees. How do we bring down our exposure on the bank guarantees, and then various all the other expenditure heads. And in fact, we had pruned down or deferred some of the capital expenses. See, we felt that this was the right time to conserve cash and also look at alternative methods for hiring or leasing equipments at a much lower cost, because as mainly plant and machinery used in the construction, many were idle and we could get hiring at a much lower cost. So really the capex was restricting it only to the bare minimum which is required. And similarly, travel and other costs and all had already by then many of the other cost suppliers and subcontractors, vendors. And these are some of the steps which we took. And all the flab, the expenditure cutting was done. One thing on the employee aspect, what I wanted to say is L&T always cares for its employees. So we decided that we might defer some of the recruits and limit it only to the extent of what is immediately required. I mean, not creating a bench strength and all that. In fact, every year we take around 1,000 number of graduate engineers training through campus recruits, engineers fresh from colleges, and similarly both engineers and non-engineers for commercial. In fact, this year we decided that we will not stop that, because it is a social responsibility of L&T to recruit, those people, 1,000 or 1,500 members. And this pandemic should not be a reason at all for us to stop this. And there's a commitment, given from the top that no, we are not stopping this we are going ahead. Even though they couldn't come and join, we allowed them remote working from the start itself for a few months, and we honored and we kept that commitment. And in terms of our existing staff members also, we decided not to. This was not the time for people who have traveled with us for so long, So we only deferred some of the pay raises, and like as I said again, from the top, we cut down on the bonuses which people were taking. See, other than this, so we sorted that all the employees, they were secure. They didn't have any threat about their jobs, and we ensured that the employee morale was kept high. Okay, so now on this backdrop, now as we are moving to the new year now, I mean this current year, we have already started our budget exercise. Normally we started by January, and then we concluded by March, to start the financial year well ahead with the new budgets in place. Now, one of the top priorities has been for us is on the cost leadership part, whether we will be able to maintain the same level of whatever we have negotiated and brought down. We know that now we can work at an optimal level. So carrying it forward, this is one of the ways of improving our profitability. So while we start the budget, we are well aware that still the pandemic is not totally off. There is a second wave which is coming. We don't know how that will pan out. Only thing is that we are now well prepared to handle it and tackle it, but things are still uncertain. So we are really not in a position to give guidance on how the year will be, but with whatever lessons we have learned, we are working the next year based on these lessons.
Navneet, is that how you're also foreseeing the current year now? I mean, what sort of forecasting, planning are you looking at, and what are the scenarios that is put together for the year?
Yeah, so actually, what has happened during the pandemic time is we kept on preparing ourselves for the worst. Like, say, for example, when we looked at our cash position, the first thing we said that if nobody pays us anything, none of the customers pays anything, how long can we survive? And we said that, starting off with saying we will be able to survive for 30 days. How can we work out and increase it to 60 days? What if some of the other variables change, that one of the customers goes bankrupt or something else happens? So we kept on planning as to how do you really work towards managing that situation. What that has actually done is created a significant amount of agility in the organization, where everybody is able to think and immediately adjust as to building up strategies to de-risk any impact on the business. That is a big learning that we've had through this crisis from a scenario planning perspective. And as we look towards the next year, I think at least if you would see from an IT perspective, because I'm talking from an IT company perspective, I think things are looking much better because there is a significant movement of people towards adoption of technology, and we believe the worst of the crisis is over. While there would be again second wave, third waves coming in, but there is also a vaccine which is coming. It's only about time as to when the impact of vaccines will be felt based on the extent to which people actually are able to get vaccinated. But we believe the worst from an economic perspective is done, and what we have to prepare towards is how do we work towards ensuring that we are serving our customers better, and that is what we are preparing ourselves towards, and which also means looking at how the models of business will be disrupted, and how do we really prepare ourselves towards catering to it. So that's how we are looking at it.
Mr. Balaji, would you like to sort of comment on, how the models of businesses will change as we go forward? Something that Navneet sort of alluded to.
Definitely. See, what happens during this pandemic period, we are also learning. Like at the same time, we are also supporting our clients. So we have to first actually learn, and then we have to support our clients as well. So what exactly we do is how strategically we can change our approach and also educate our employees so that in order to service our clients, they do it in a more sophisticated way. See, there are certain costs we already have a control, like for example, travel expenditure. In this pandemic situation, absolutely there is no travel, no local conveyance, or no social expenditure, or no staff expenditure. So already there are a lot of reduction in the cost that has happened over the budget. So what exactly has we are encouraged or motivated employees to maintain the same level of increments and providing the bonus to them, so that it's basically the support of the employees is very important in this pandemic situation in any service organization. That is what as we want to do it to all employees. The other point basically we want to ensure is what the technology can support them, in the sense like each and every employee should have a good technological system, like the computer or the laptop or the internet connectivity. So we support them by paying some monthly amount for their maintaining the good amount of internet connectivity or a Wi-Fi situation. So those type of support systems we provide. So what we try to do is in our budget forecast also, we closely monitor with the business units and ensure that the forecasts are more shorter than compared to longer. Like we used to have a three-year planning period. Instead of that, we have a 1-year plan, and then we have 3 months rolling forecast. So that's what we closely manage that. The other point what we want to say is cash flow is definitely a challenge. But what we also should understand that we have several small suppliers. So we do not want to default any small suppliers, because that will have a very bad effect on them, and again the supply to us will get affected. So our routine expenditures, like whatever the cleaning or office maintenance, anything we should pay on time and maintain that relationship over the period. So that's something we encourage our as a finance team to do across.
Understood. Raj, business cycles are becoming shorter, contracts are being renegotiated. How do you sort of build a resilient sort of finance function as we go forward?
See, I think the leader of the finance function, the CFO, I think the expectation from him is that he needs to be a soothsayer. I mean, he should predict the future. That is very important. So if he predicts the future correctly, based on that, then he can create a finance function that suits it, right? So you know that in retail, we are the largest brick and mortar retailer. Reliance Retail has been the largest brick and mortar retailer in India presently. So when we saw that the shops closed down, so very smartly we started the JioMart, that is online, right? And we have aligned our finance function also, so that we can facilitate the launch of this JioMart, and which is doing fantastically well. So I mean, you need to build a finance function based on the requirement of the day. Okay.
Niranjana, would you sort of agree with the same thing that Raj just spoke about?
Yeah, I do believe that. See, we need to move along with the businesses, and actually, in the current thing, it is very difficult to predict what will happen next. At least, the preparedness from the finance side, I believe that it is now there, kind of, having gone through this cycle once, I think to a large extent, we are kind of prepared. If at all, again it strikes on, if it comes the next side, next time once again on, how we will be able to handle it. Like, for example, one thing, another one is that while, even though we talk about quite a lot on technology and digitalization, I find that, in finance, maybe, this pandemic has really pushed up into a quicker adaptation of digital technology. Normally F&A will be the first one to automate or digitize, but still at an advanced level, bringing in AI and related tools, that somehow many were not fully geared up to that, but this has really pushed us into it. Like, some of the things which were brought in is using AI to the maximum extent possible, including our risk management process. Now, we have used this period actually. We have a very robust risk management process. Now, we have built in tools wherein we build up various the scenarios and the risks, and then we assign one, and it automatically quantifies a value for those risks, isn't it? Like, I mean, these kind of tools which we have built up both in our risk management process, or even reading the contract terms, using AI and machine learning to read the contract terms, which are the key factors. Like, for example, with the same customer, if a new, normally the contract terms are say more than 1,000 pages. So while it is gone through fully, many times those are skipped, saying that these are the same customers. But then using these tools, we go through the terms which are different from this contract to the earlier contract. It brings in those ones. So we focus on that. So these are some of the things where really, I mean, we have got into technology to a very detailed extent. And I think this pandemic has been an opportunity for the finance team, I feel, to implement this full. While at the project progress level and the technical side, or at the design side, or on the other aspects, AI has played a very major role. Both the technology, digitalization, AI, and all the tools have been used extensively. Somehow in finance, I mean, it is my view, we have been slightly lagging behind now. This pandemic has really pushed us into it to, I mean, grab that opportunity and ensure that, digitization is done to the maximum. I mean, basically, I feel that, the dependence on manual processes should be cut to the extent possible, and make it more automated, which makes it easy for everybody. And I mean, it also should help us in our judgment processes. I think this has provided that kind of an opportunity too, I feel.
Understood. Navneet, I mean, as CFOs, there's a lot of stress on innovation. There's machine learning, artificial intelligence, investing in the right technology as we go forward, and we've obviously seen the role that technology plays. What would be your sort of focus areas in that aspect in terms of technology?
Yeah, actually, from a technology perspective, one is we have to look at finding solutions to problem and how we can be proactive. The biggest important thing is what everybody needs to focus on is know your customers and products and focus on business models. Whatever can accelerate or create velocity for either which can give a customer delight or accelerate your go to market or will help in your sales is something which has to be given priority, which means that from your internal process perspectives, if there are areas where you have to go through various approval cycles, how can you actually with technology and using AI build in those accelerators so that the entire decision making cycle can happen faster. That's where I believe velocity is the theme with which this needs to work on, along with a balance of risk management. So that is something which is very important, and basis this to access whichever actually can drive results for you is the technology you will actually opt for. And that's where a prioritization framework will have to be used, both from a organization perspective as well as to the extent the role of the finance function is. This perspective have to be taken into consideration when you look at identifying tools and technologies which are absolute essential for you to evolve as an organization. I would repeat something which I told a few moments back is we need to actually what this event has done is it has just accelerated what you were supposed to do in 2025 or 2030 you need to do now, which means the pace has to be much faster. And to that extent you need to really prioritize and look at what can create the most impact and accordingly invest in those areas. That's how I'll sum it up.
Absolutely. Mr. Balaji, Navneet spoke about how tools that can make decisions so much more easier, balancing risk management. When we talk about technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of that, what would be your sort of focus areas as you go forward, and what is the sort of reaction that you're getting from your clients also?
See, one of the basic important thing is bringing the new digital tools, because we have a lot of data in our custody. and what we need to do is how we use those data. So the digital tools helps to basically transform data to more analytical information to make appropriate decision making and strategic decisions. So that is what we are concentrating now to like Power BI or Python or these tools, we Tableau. These are the tools that we want to use it in order to use the data in a more relevant way and build leadership dashboards, etc. The other thing, what we also this pandemic learned us is, now we are almost 80% working from home. Like in the past, we are 100% working from office. In the future, what we want to do is let us work 50% from home and 50% office. So we can cut short our premises, we can cut short our environmental infrastructure costs, everything. So that is what this pandemic is doing. It is, we never thought about this type of reduction in our expenditure. So this pandemic is bringing, helps us to understand what type of working culture or working environment we should focus, and the cost reduction areas that we should visualize.
Sure. Raj, but even as we talk about all of this, the role of technology and artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on, there are of course concerns also on the side, right? Cybersecurity, things like that. How do you, as sort of finance leaders, find your way through that?
I agree. I agree. There are concerns. One is the data security. So for that, normally people would transfer data through mails. In our organization, we don't transfer any data through mails. Like when you do due diligence, we know a prepared data room. Like for that, we have several data rooms wherein we post the data, which is absolutely safe, and only the relevant people who have access to that can access to the data. Right. Number one. Number two, in this kind of scenario, when we had used the situation wherein I used to spend 12 hours of office every day, and my work team also just used to do the same thing, most of them. So we used to work together 12 hours. We used to see each other working. Now suddenly things change. We are all at homes. We are in remote. We have not met for almost 1 year now, almost say 10 months now. So in these kind of places, things situation a company like our RIL where more than 1 lakh people work, the governance is very important. You should have to have the appropriate governance, appropriate kind of meetings, and you have the appropriate agenda. And also you have to work on those agendas to see how you take it forward. So this governance is important, and the data security is very important. So these are the two things I think we have to work. We worked on very well, and other organization need to work to take this forward.
Ma'am, Niranjana, would you, as we go forward, a key remains, having agile companies and resilient companies. And considering how liquidity will remain a challenge, how can you create those companies?
Yeah. Okay. Liquidity is, of course, that is one of the key. As I always say, we normally say cash is king. Cash has always been the king. But this pandemic has proved to us that cash, we can no longer call it the king. Cash is now God to us. So, so liquidity, that is on the foremost now. So in fact, as I said, in addition to improving the overall structure, what we have been doing is we have been focusing on clients where we feel that the funds flow is available, and for those who don't have, in fact, we have been going slow on some of the projects at the approval of the clients also. So our focus is now, to the extent possible, do more or bill more to clients where they are willing to spend and ready to spend, where their budgets permit, and where for some of the clients where their budgets don't permit, we are kind of going a bit slow, somehow managing that the objective, because ultimately it's customer satisfaction. So ensuring that their objectives are also met, we are pruning it in such a way in terms of our receivables also. And as I said, for some of the customers who have said that they would be expecting after a couple of months, we are going in even for factoring of the receivables, or for some of them, we are just getting it upfront from them. And as I said, now, receivables factoring. And for those vendors, wherever there is a mismatch between our receivables and payables for any particular project, we are also going in for back-to-back terms with our vendors to ensure that these are matched. Somehow, in some way, I find that, managing this liquidity has become the key thing now in this crisis, to keep ourselves afloat.
How do you, Navneet, how do you manage liquidity? In a crisis like this?
Yeah, so you have to find ways and avenues of how do you conserve and collect cash, which means that working through all the sort of financing that you are able to generate. Uh, Also, working say in terms of say vendors also whom you are working with, you actually prioritize who are the vendors you would be wanting to pay on time so that they don't get impacted adversely versus the vendors who can actually be paid over a period of time. So you work towards that. But most essential is this, where you also need to reinvent your business model and find out ways of and avenues as to how by design you can create operating models where cash can actually be delayed either in payment or you can accelerate the collection of it, and that is where the entire focus is. Otherwise all other strategies are pretty short term centric, which can give you some one time kind of a gain, but it is a disruption of model of business, which is what one has to look at to be able to create a sustained business momentum which can thrive and survive even in the event of even cash not being available to that extent. And so that is where you have to work with your business teams and understand your customers and see how do you actually work towards creating those kind of models.
Understood. Raj, so in that sense, how can sort of companies put in processes to meet untoward and unexpected, events that take place on a daily basis, and how do you sort of prepare yourself for that?
Actually, the situation unexpected because you don't expect, right? So you cannot predict the unexpected. So I mean, in general, you should have a resilience system. And one more thing I want to stress, that we normally organizations think of themselves, but I think time has come. We need to think on not the only your organization but the ecology as a whole. So if we are successful in managing this pandemic and doing all those rights issue and all the bringing the investors into RIL, which is one of the largest investment across the globe, it is because we have managed the ecology very well. I mean, we have our auditors. We have taken care of their IT needs also. We have our vendors, we have customers, we have taken their IT needs also. I mean, we are connected digitally with our vendors and customers. So if you build an ecology of that extent, then only you will be able to get through this kind of uncertainty. Because uncertainties are uncertainty. You don't know what will happen. Today there is a pandemic, tomorrow there might be earthquake. I mean, that is something like that. So you need to have a build an organization which can manage any sort of uncertainty. It cannot be predicted.
Okay. So Balaji, I mean, can you build those organizations, and what really goes into building those organizations that can withstand those unpredictabilities and crises?
See, definitely. See, what we also advise to the clients as a strategic point is to build such type of organization. See, the model should work on any type of situations. As Niranjana was mentioned, like, we need to concentrate at this point of time on the clients where the liquidity is very good. In order to maintain our liquidity as well as to deliver to the clients, we need to balance between the two. Instead of going for a client where we know that there is a cash flow issue, so we focus on the clients where there is no cash flow issue, and then build our model towards it. So that way, we are overall resilient and work towards the clients and bring the liquidity intact. So that's what I would like to add.
Sorry, before we move into the audience questions, maybe as we start the current year, maybe all of you can sort of throw some light on what your priorities for this year will be, and how do you see it sort of evolving as we go forward in the next 12 months. So, ma'am, Niranjana, would you like to sort of give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very shortly to say that I feel that this is the time for consolidation for us, since I mean, this is a period where we really know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. And as I always say, first, what is very important in these kind of larger events, we first should survive. See, once you survive, then all other strategies can work, and we all have survived this pandemic and in a very successful way. Itself shows that I mean, we will be able to sail through the next year, and this is a year of consolidation, and we would be working on our strengths, on what we know is the best, and we do see infrastructure spending and other things happening. So, since we have also stayed afloat, I'm sure that we will be able to take the next year through in a more positive way. And I think the year 2021, heralds a very positive note for all of us. I think.
Your thoughts? What would be your priorities as a technology company, going forward?
Sorry, to me.
We can hear you. I was asking, how does the new year look like, and what would be your priorities there?
Yeah, actually, what COVID times did was a real eye opener. There are, apart from what everybody has talked of, there are two things I would want to call out. Improving your own learning is very, very important. How can you be more agile and how you can be thinking more is also based on how much time you are spending to actually uplift yourself. That's one element that is very important, and we are actually encouraging our all our employees to take up something so that it can be a personal development for themselves to learn newer things. That's one element. Second is from a talent perspective, we are looking at that, creating very tangential talent as a part of the finance organization. Like for example, I am looking to recruit certain engineers and IITians as a part of my team to bring, and also data scientists to bring in or to really move up in terms of the kind of data analysis we can do and how we can create predictive models. From that perspective, creating talent which is much more tangential and different from the traditional chartered accountants and kind of commerce graduates that you bring into the fold is something that we are looking at. Apart from what everybody else has talked of in terms of trying to be again looking at how do you ensure that you are able to have an iterative work or a agile methodology of working, and so on and so forth. So I would just call out these two specific points which we are actively focusing on.
Absolutely. Raj, going forward, how does the year look like, and what would be your sort of key priority areas and your focus areas?
On the onset, I should like to tell, I think the pandemic has taught us. The role of CFOs have significantly undergone a change. The CFOs always have been a leader, a finance leader of the organization, but now they have been a custodian of the books of accounts, accounting, etc., etc., etc. But now their role is more of futuristic, more of predicting the future. For example, the day before yesterday, I think the Indian regulator has done a deal of 2 lakh crore as per with the repo. So the bond market will undergo a change. The softening of interest rate will no more be there. Possibly it will start rising. So the CFO has to take care of all these things. He has to see the situation, understand the situation, and then the plan ahead. So predicting the future is a very important role of the CFOs right now. Cash, obviously, cash is the king, cash is the god. Whatever you want to say, cash is cash. We all understand that. So managing cash would be absolutely very important. And the last and foremost importance of that, that the uses of new technologies. If the CFO is not using new technology, you will definitely lag behind. People speak of artificial intelligence to understand your cash, predicting your cash flow, but I see that you have to use artificial intelligence to understand the cash flow of your vendors and the creditors, vendors and the suppliers and the customers also, so as to ensure that they will be able to pay you the money so that when it's required to be paid. So you have to be in a situation like that wherein you need to not to manage your organization and you have to manage the entire ecology. So this year, this year when 1920, 2021, we know that the GDP the overall GDP will be a contracting of 7.5% or around that actually. Both the RBI data and the NSO data are out. The next year they are predicting a growth of 10% plus. So a lot of changes will come. Transition from minus 7.5 to plus 10% is a huge opportunity. And I think a CFO has to partner the business because it's a very important role to ensure that their organization get maximum out of it.
Absolutely. Mr. Balaji, your thoughts, sort of going forward, and the role of the CFO, as like Raj was mentioning, it's clearly undergone some sea of transformation. So how do you see the current year going forward?
See, basically, what I would like to add here is, even in the past or in the current or going to be in the future also, the things have not changed much as far as the business scenario is concerned. What exactly is going to happen is there are several opportunities waiting for us because a lot of companies who are now in situation of coming back, so they have to come back. So it is our responsibility as to help them to strategize their decisions and bring more solutions to them, offer more solutions to them, and then that's a good opportunity what we have. So I see that the things are going to improve further as far as service industry is concerned. The opportunities are very high in the next couple of years.
I think we'll begin to take questions from the audience. So the first question has come from Mr. Devendra Kumar, who's asking, will job cuts continue in 2021 or are things looking up across markets? Who would sort of like to take that question?
Okay, I'll take.
Sure.
So I think we should be assured that job cut, in my opinion, will not continue. I mean, if you see the Indian economy, I mean, the worst performance were mining, constructions, and manufacturing. So obviously, I mean, construction, mining, and manufacturing, both there are positive tractions. Although in the core sector has shown a contraction on month-to-month basis, but I think that this year we'll see a lot of growth, especially the initiative of government, the fiscal and monetary initiatives the government has taken, the Atmanirbhar Bharat and the PLI scheme, that is profit link incentive scheme the government has announced. This will definitely spur growth in the economy, and this will result in increase of jobs. And one more thing that I need to tell you, in this pandemic, our service sector, which has providing a very big boost to our economy lately, has not performed. You all know that we don't go to our barber, we don't go to a salon, we are not taking services. So all these things will change. The people are tired sitting at home. People are coming out. People are going to restaurants. People are going to hotels. People are trying to travel now. And with these vaccines coming up, maybe in 3-4 months, there are a lot of vengeance. People will take those services with a lot of vengeance. So I think job cuts will not be there. In fact, economy will grow very fast. The prediction is 10%, and if things go on well, my prediction is even more than 10%.
Okay, and as Navneet mentioned earlier, he's also looking to hire more people. So clearly, would you want to sort of comment on that, Navneet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I told earlier, I think we believe the worst of the crisis is over. And from here on, we should only look at positives coming in. So I don't think, job cuts is something which will be there. In fact, most of the companies and the CFOs that I'm talking to are looking up to, start hiring back again. So from that perspective, that's not a risk. But what I would tell everybody is that you need to keep reinventing yourself, because these are times of survival of the fittest. So if you are not keeping up with the changes in technologies and are not actually personally giving attention to ensure that you yourself are learning something new, you would actually be somebody who would get impacted. So that is the way I would look at it.
Understood. Another question that's come from Vishnu Menon is that what should be the impact of the code on social security at a time when entities are stressed largely by the pandemic? Ma'am, Niranjana, would you like to sort of give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes. See, this, code on social security actually, it again, it depends on the kind, in fact, we looked at our organization's point of view also. Now, wherever we have balanced the overall pay in such a way, then those organizations might not be really hit by that. Your fixed and variable and the impact what a PF will have on that, or even for the gratuity and the other benefits which you are giving for fixed contract people and all that. It again depends on the kind of organization. I think it would maybe impact more on the IT and the other sector where the variable component is higher. Maybe Navneet can add to that.
Navneet, would you want to take on that?
Yeah, this will have varying impact to companies based on the kind of pay structures that they operate in. and so we have to still look and see as to when it gets effective. Uh, but it sounds pretty good from an employee perspective, where it gives much more security to them, and definitely it does create some kind of a what I would say a P&L impact on IT companies. But I think cost of they have to work towards saying how can they actually find out ways of ensuring that the cost can be optimized so that any impact on account of this can actually be sustained.
Understood. Okay, one more question that's come from Vishnu, which is that what is the impact on productivity from moving to a work from home or a home office model? Mr. Balaji, would you like to sort of respond to that?
Yes, basically, the productivity is never a constraint whether you work from office or work from home. What is important is whether the client is being delivered with the deliverables. So that is happening, and that is monitored, and the utilization is always not a challenge at all. So I don't see any challenge in working from home or working from office. But certainly, the model works fine.
Some thoughts on that, on productivity gains, work from home, home office?
Uh, okay, see, I mean, we have been getting different kind of feedback, from on this. I mean, work from home and work from office model. In fact, some of the employees, when we opened up, some of them voluntarily said that we wanted to be fitted into the 25% who can
Okay.
come and work in the office, because they felt that the productivity was better in office, and they were having problems working from home, maybe because of the infrastructure constraints, or or other things. But then that's what it varies, kind of. It's quite difficult to quantify for our kind of work.
See,
Right.
actually, this is the new normal we need to get to adjust it to, because
Correct.
I believe in the next 4 or 5 years still, I don't think everybody would be working 100% from office, and that is something we have to look forward to. I know there are companies like TCS had announced that they envisaged that only 25% of their workforce will be working from office over a period of time. I think that's definitely going to happen. And so, initially, definitely, each one of us did face challenges working from home. But I think, it's been about almost a year that everybody has been working from home. At least, I have not been to office from the time the lockdown started, and I've been continuing to work from home. And this is a new thing. We have to get adjusted to it. Your workspaces, the office spaces are going to be redesigned, where you will have more collaboration tools and collaboration discussion rooms, where people, if they want to meet and have a discussion, will come, or for a particular training might come. But essentially, work from home is something which is going to be integral and is going to be a long-term thing, and that is something as an outcome of pandemic, which it has given to us and will stay.
But again,
Actually, I think
psychologically, one more view on this is that a hybrid model would be, would be the apt one. Is again, another thought. Like, I mean, not fully work from home and not fully work from office. In fact, when we did a very extensive study, many of them felt that they would prefer a hybrid model, where they would be working from home. At the same time, they would, a few days in a month or something, they would prefer to work from office too, to have the connect with colleagues, and with the rest of with the rest of the office atmosphere. So maybe I feel, in my kind of an environment, I feel a hybrid model would be better suited.
yeah. Actually, two or three things are happening. That in case of IT companies, the work from home is not a new concept. I mean, a lot of IT people are working from home for a very long time, so they are used to it. The new challenge was in manufacturing, construction sort of places where it's like obviously the who are in the site working, so they cannot work from. They have to go to the site and work. But otherwise, people were in office. I think we have realized and we have discovered that working from home is possible. People who suppose in Borivali and have to come to Vasi to work and spend 6 hours traveling or 5 hours traveling, if he can manage to work from home, he saves 5 hours. You can work for 2 hours more and then give 3 hours to the family members. I mean, that's huge bonanza to him. But I agree with Ranjana. I mean, 100% work from may not be possible. Maybe 1 or 2 days a week, people have to move to the office, uh, because you have meetings. You need to meet external people. You need to meet your team members or some sort of thing. But there's another more important factor. I know Suppose your office in Powai, so you would like to rent a home or buy a home in Powai. But now with this kind of scenario, you can live in a remote place. You have travel to office once or 2 days a week. So the economic situation will undergo a change. I mean, you
Absolutely.
see law people, you could see people going for bigger homes, better homes, maybe at a remote place. So their family life is not compromised, but yet they have to travel only once or twice, which they will be able to manage anyway. People might move out of Bombay also to slightly outskirts. I mean, one day a week they can travel from Baroda also or from Ahmedabad also to Bombay and then go back. I mean, if the family can stay with their extended family in those places or Nasik or something of like that. So, I mean, lot of changes will be there in this economy, and we have to observe the changes and get acquainted to the changes. That is what I feel.
Yeah, I hope Vishnu is happy with the answer. We have one more question that's come from Vatsalya C, which is how did the companies manage all the lease costs or huge rental costs in this year when they couldn't use those assets in the first place? And I think all of you will have a view on that. But maybe let me start with Ma'am Niranjana.
Yeah, actually, see, we have a mix of both own assets and leased assets. Wherever we couldn't use the lease assets, we did no renegotiate the rates with them for continuity. Because I mean, we felt that it wouldn't be fair to ask them to remove the assets, so we renegotiated the rate. We went in for a lower rate, and we assured them that once the situation picks up, we will be utilizing the same assets. But then when it comes to the rental of the premises and all that, I mean, all those costs, I mean, these are all the sunk costs, we had to bear. I mean, it was a direct hit in our P&L for some of the costs, but then we have renegotiated wherever possible. I mean, I think this is one thing which all organizations have accepted and moved on. Immediate costs which are not recoverable.
Mr. Balaji, do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with Niranjana. Basically, what happens, the rent is a fixed cost and it is a sunk cost. So we need to, already we are working in 80-20 model, like only 80% of the employees have a space at office and 20% has started working from home already. So what is basically we can do is this pandemic, after the pandemic, probably we can think about surrendering or whatever it is when the work from home is stabilized or there is a structured policy in place for 40% working from home or the mixed model or hybrid model. See, one of the things what I want to emphasize here also the flexible working model. So we also should start thinking about flexible working hours for all the employees. So that way, the working space is going to get contrast over the period like 50-50, something like that. So, but currently, yes, we can't do all of a sudden surrender the contract because these are all long-term lease and over the period of 3 years, we can't surrender.
True. We're really sort of short of time, so I'm going to take one more audience question that's come, which is what should corporates do to make balance sheet and cost structure more resilient? We've realized a lot of service can be done remotely without using the physical space. Is it the new normal? I think the question is about making the balance sheet and cost structure more resilient. What can companies sort of do to that? Navneet, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, in some form, I have answered this earlier as well. Actually, what is more important is you have to keep on reinventing. That is how you will actually be able to, create something which is long term and sustainable, leaner balance sheet and cost structures. Which means that how will you source or how will you actually provide services itself has to undergo significant change, and that is what will define as to how you can actually make it much leaner. That's the only key. Keep looking at what your customers requirements are, how you can actually solve their problems, and how it can be done more efficiently, and the answer lies within that. That's how it will be done, because depending on industry to industry, there are various different parameters you will work on to achieve the same result.
And I'm sorry, there's one more. That's the last question that's come our way, which is as cash flow was the key financial parameter in this pandemic, what were the strategies put in place to efficiently manage key accounts? Raj, would you like to give it a go?
Yeah. See, obviously the cash flow is the key parameter. I mean, cash is the king, cash is the god, whatever we have said till now. But one thing is important. You have to have innovative means of increasing the cash flow. I mean, you can go cost cutting at the same time. you can go to a bank and take financing tools which will extend your credit period with a minimal rate of interest. Now the interest rates are very low, even you know that. Similarly, from the receivable side also, you can go to the bank and get it discounted or get the money faster, so that you can use the money in some of the business process. So it is not, it is not always cutting the cost. Beyond a certain point, you cannot cut the cost. You need to have innovative methods of financing tools to increase your cash flow.
So I think on that note, we've really short past our time. I just want to wish all of you, and the gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And we wish you the best as we go forward into a new year. We hope things will settle, and from all of us, we can only wish you the best in helping create agile companies. So thank you so much once again for joining us today.
Thank